はい、Marty Friedman です。僕のインストラクションのビデオにようこそ。上手くなるために一生懸命練習しなければならないけど、このビデオを見てレッスンすれば、きっとライバルに差をつけることができます。頑張ってください。Part 1では僕なりのピッキングスタイル、フィンガリングスタイルを紹介します。あなたのプレイに役立ててください。Let's get in tune. I am in fact tuned to E flat, so here's a chord to tune to. This is an E chord. Okay, now I'm going to play an E major arpeggio and move it up in different positions so you can get an idea of how you can use the entire neck while just playing one chord. Check it out. Okay, slowly. Now, the best thing to do after you learn this from me showing it to you is change it, and it's going to be easy for you to figure out how to change it after I show you the way I just did it. The way I just played it that time looks like this slowly. Now, the best thing to do with that is once you're in this position here, you want to take the same notes that I showed you and play them all kinds of different ways. Don't do it exactly the same as I showed you. Just go in and out however you like to, but the way to do it is learn it the way I did it first and then change it. Don't just change it first. Learn it, nail it, be able to play it the same way I just did and then change it. That goes for everything on this video. A lot of guys tell me, I don't have big hands, how do you do those stretches? Those long stretches, I don't really do them very much. As a matter of fact, I try to get out of doing them as much as possible. For example, when you're in this position, the way most people would do it with normal-sized hands would probably stretch like this. That type of thing, for that kind of phrase. But I would go like this. Let's do that whole thing again really slowly so you can see exactly what's happening. That's a very typical type of thing I would do, which normally would take a lot of stretching, but as you see, I don't stretch very much doing it. Part 2ではエクササイズに少しずつアイデアを加えて自分だけのフレーズ作りにチャレンジします。オリジナルスタイルを作ってみてください。A lot of guys ask me, how is it that you play so long and so fluid without stopping, without repeating yourself? And sometimes it's just a matter of making the thing that you actually are repeating kind of long. Making your repeating phrase a really long phrase so people don't even know that you're repeating something because there's so many notes in it. The way to do that is to take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 short repeating phrases and add them together. I'll give you an example, being in, say, like the blues scale of E, like up around here on the 12th fret position, We're going to start with the basic little position that you all should know that looks like this. Kind of that feeling going on here, but let's take these notes here. So if you learn that by itself, you can get it right around here. Now let's add something to that. Let's go to like the next note up here like this. So we're adding this very simple phrase in there, and then back down. So we're starting here with this as many times as you want. So slowly, both of them together will look something like this. Okay, once you get to that point where you have maybe two things connected to each other, you can try something else that doesn't really stay in the same scale or doesn't stay in the same melody train of thought as what you're doing. That's going to really break it out. And something that always breaks out of anything is doing something chromatic. So I was doing a pretty much bluesy scale here by doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and down in kind of a chromatic fashion like this. Slowly, that looks like this. And basically, it's not a real chromatic scale. It's one of those things that's easy for the fingers, that maybe leaves a note here or two out of the scale that just sounds cool. If I were to make everything exactly the same as the perfect scale, it would just sound like a machine. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be any personality. And plus, it's easier to play this way, if you can follow what I'm talking about. Just do what's easy for the fingers and gets the sound that you want to get. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to try to remember what I just did and go like this. And quickly, it sounds like this. And that would be a good time, in my mind, to throw something in that's major. So altogether, you have something like this. Okay, what I just did was move from one place in the neck, on the low part of the neck, to a high part of the neck relatively quickly. And the idea is to get from point A to point B. First, you got to hear it in your mind. That's what you want to do. You want to get from this note to this note. And then what you do at this note is like, that's up to you. But the whole idea is what I'm going to show now is getting from point A to point B. The way I just did it slowly is like this. That's the high note, and like I said, you know, take off and do whatever you want after that. Whatever, okay. that was moving in like with scales, arpeggios, and all kinds of different things. An easy way to get from point A to point B is use kind of an octave system. Divide the thing up into octaves. Get a pattern, preferably an easy pattern, and move it in the 3 octaves that you have. Let's take this note sequence, for example. And move it up here. Using the same finger shape like that makes it easy. So you can go like this. You can make it a little bit more complicated and it will last a little bit longer if you do that. Check it out, something like this. Like this. The idea is just getting to this note. What you do after that is your own business. Okay, what that was slowly is a longer pattern, but I still did the same thing in each octave, like this. Okay, so the idea is you want to hear it first in your mind. Here's point A, here's point B, how do I get there? That's 3 suggestions. Now you can use that particular pattern or just use that as an idea to move up. I'll give you another quick example, and then if you don't understand after that, you should really go back to the beginning of this video and start again. Okay, it looks like this. Okay, that was just a minor 7th arpeggio, I guess, going up. Now that was sort of a different mental concept. That was, here's my point A, and my point B was here. But I wanted to kind of go up and get like really high notes in between before I ended up at the end. So it kind of took me up, took me back down, and took me into the middle. So you get this. And it's really important that you understand that it's got to be from the head first. You got to hear that this is where you want to go and this is where you want to end up, or else your fingers are just going to blindly just be going nowhere. So that's very important. You got to know the roads of how to get from point A to point B, but you got to hear them as you're playing them. Very important point right there. Part 3.ここでは日本的なオリエンタルサウンドを紹介します。無理な世界に挑戦してみましょう。When I first started playing rock music, I wanted to learn everybody's guitar parts that I could find. All kinds of fast guitar parts, slow guitar parts, just all the good players. I wanted to learn everything. And so after I learned a lot of rock playing and a lot of rock guitar feel, I kind of wanted to find something new. So I looked to classical music and I looked to foreign music and I looked to music from all different countries, you know. When I got to like Indian music and Chinese music and Japanese music, I got really inspired because there was a whole kind of music that's been in existence for so many millions of years. I mean, it's probably actually just ever since time began, and it's had that much time to evolve. And so I wanted to tap into that information pool. And plus the music really hit me in my heart somewhere. I really enjoyed the sound of the music, a very exotic feeling. And so I tried to emulate the sounds of the instruments of those countries, preferably the Asian countries, you know, like India, like I said, and China and Japan. And I really got into that. So I studied a lot of that, and then I pretty much let it just find its way into my guitar playing. So I'm going to just mess around a little bit, and just holding a chord in the background, droning, you can sort of hear, you know, what makes it sound Oriental or Asian. And I'm going to try to analyze it a little bit for you so you can understand what it is and how to do it, and how to utilize music from other cultures and put it into your own style. So let's check this out, and I'll mess around a little bit. Okay, if you didn't notice, I have kind of a unique way to bend the string. It's very strange, and I got it from actually trying to copy a voice. And if you copy different instruments other than guitar, you can get a kind of strange slant on the way you phrase things. And I was trying to copy a human voice one time, and it just kind of tweaked. It kind of jerked in and out of the note, and I thought that was really interesting. If I could try to do that on guitar, I would be really stoked. So what it is, you have to have the target note that you're shooting for, and a lot of times I do it from a half step behind the note that I want. So say the note I want is this note E, and the sound I want to get is. So the thing behind the way I do those bends is, it's really kind of complicated, but if you watch really closely, I'll tell you what it is. First, you're actually bending the note up without picking it, like that. And the split second before you bend it back up, you pick it. So if you follow me, check this out. I'm going to try to do it in slow motion. It only works when you play at full speed, but this is what it actually is, slowed down. Now I over-exaggerated the first note. It's actually 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. But when you do it for real, you don't want to hear that first note really at all. Just kind of have it there, but don't have it there, if you follow me. So you just want to barely pick after that first note is played with your left hand, and you really only want to hear the second note and the third note. It's very unusual. It's not, but. So it's one of those things, kind of a trial and error thing, and the best way to do it is try to emulate it. Emulate the sound of that, emulate the sound of other instruments, emulate like a saxophone or something, or violin, or in my case, an Indian sitar, or what else did there's a Chinese violin that has a really nice sound to it that I copied a lot of. And a way to practice that is to take like a melodic passage like a scale or a melody and try to add as much of these strange bends in there as possible. Like take a... The reason I started to get interested in that is because I found that most people bend pretty much alike. They do your standard rock blues bend. Very standard, but if you kind of change it a little bit, you can get your own style out of it a little bit. So what I did was... Basically, I'm going the same place from point A to point B, but it's the notes that I choose and the way I kind of phrase and bend them that makes it sound a little bit different. So I suggest that you learn the way I do it and then try to learn from other instruments and copy them. You know, as close as you can possibly copy on guitar, it's still not going to sound like a saxophone or a Chinese violin. So just by doing that, it's going to make you sound different enough that you can stand out a little bit. So for example, you know, that little oriental sounding thing that I just did had a lot of those strange bends in it. And a lot of times I was changing the scales and modes and all that stuff. I don't really know too much about scales and modes. I go by my ear, and the best way to develop your ear is to do exactly what I just did and have a chord holding in the background and listen for yourself and learn what the tones actually sound like. If you're thinking about scale terminology and stuff like that while you're soloing, your head is just going to be so full of big words that you're not going to know what you're going to do, and you're not going to be able to feel anything. It's all about hearing something and being able to connect from your head to your heart and your gut and to your fingers. And the best way to do that is just over a chord droning in the background. That's how you hear what the notes sound like. Instead of, well, this is a major third and a minor third and a minor scale and all that. That doesn't mean anything when it comes down to playing. So a good way to practice is over one or maybe even just two chords, and then you can really hear what the notes sound like. And if you notice during that extended jam thing, I did a lot of going in and out of major and minor to kind of emphasize the tone. Like this is kind of a pentatonic feel here, what I started out with. Using that position, there's a lot of space between the notes, so it has kind of a wide feeling, and you can sit on the notes for a long time and contemplate what they sound like. And then I got a little bit busier towards the end where I filled in the notes here. Using those kind of notes and that kind of sequence, and that has a little bit of an Eastern sound to it. And when I did something in a major key, kind of has a different sound, but it's also very exotic, you know. So if you have a chord in the background or just a droning note, you can pretty much go in and out of minor and major and learn what these notes all sound like and use that to your advantage when you're soloing, even in rock music. And it's a very fine line that you're walking when you're trying to put really exotic sounds into rock music, but it's really good to have that knowledge. So if you pretty much copy what I just did there or learn what it's kind of about, then you're going to get an idea of how to apply it to the music that you're making.最後のパート4ではコード進行を考えたプレイです。コードに合わせたメロディアスなプレイにトライしましょう。2, 3, 4. And that was my good friend Melanie Vasquez backing me up on the guitar in the background and doing a good job of that. And it's very important to jam with other people and hear what you're playing sounds like against the chords and stuff like that. So I can't emphasize enough how important that is. What I did that time around was I basically had a chord progression that I did twice. And the first time around, I played it very safe and very mellow and clean and a lot of really simple weaving in and out of melodies and stuff, but following the chords the entire time. The second time around, I got a little bit busier and I started to outline the chords with arpeggios, scales, and anything that's going to keep the flow of what I was doing going and building up some high tension as far as the way I was playing. It got a little bit busier, a little bit more difficult, and a little bit more complicated. And by the time the end came around, it just kind of mellowed out and trailed off. But it reached kind of a peak near the end somewhere. So the entire time, though, I followed each chord. Each chord that was played was a separate song in itself to me. When the E chord was played, I thought of what could I do that's going to sound right over E. And your first basic option is a note that's in an E major chord, which would be E, G sharp, and B. So I'm thinking G sharp I landed on a lot of times. And knowing that that's where I'm starting from, I can take notes that are out of the chord and land on those. But important thing is I have to know what all the names of all the notes are in each chord. Then I can outline them very easily without thinking about them as I'm trying to feel the music. It's very important to know all the names of everything that you're doing. So the second time around, I followed the chords a lot more. And I'll break down some of the arpeggiations that I did. Over one of the F sharp minor chords in there, I did kind of an outline of that arpeggio, but I did kind of an odd numbering configuration in there. Something based around the number 5. Chord is F sharp minor there. I got these notes here. If you play a succession of 5 notes, 7 notes, 13 notes, you have an odd number sound. And what most of the music we play is in 4/4, even time. So when you play an odd thing, it stands out. But if you continue the notes and repeat them quick enough and in order, it's the sequence that sounds out and not what you're playing. So it's kind of interesting to break it up instead of just doing 4-note sequences all the time, like a... That would be a 4-note sequence. Each time it goes 4 notes before it repeats. I did a 5-note thing here. And then I did a variation on that, like what I was talking about before, making a variation. I think that's really important to break things up and play some odd numbers in there. So I followed the chords, pretty much doing 16th notes the whole way, but breaking them up into little subdivisions like that made it more interesting for me playing, and hopefully listening back it's interesting that way too. Well, we've done enough studious practicing and working and all that stuff. It's time to just jam for a change. So I think we're just gonna mess around on some blues. It's something I like to do for fun. Of course, in the music I play, there's not too much blues influence, but it's definitely something that you can learn a lot from. So, and also having a lot of fun doing. So before we play, I'm going to try to show you some of the things that I'm going to try to do. You know, I'm going to improvise. I'm just going to let it all come out. So it might not come in exactly the same as I'm planning it here, but here's some ideas. This blues progression that I'm going to play has a lot of different chord changes in it. And what makes it fun for me is trying to catch all the chords. And there's all different kinds of chords. There's diminished chords, augmented chords, minor chords, major chords, seventh chords, you name it. It's got everything. And the chord progression is so famous, we've all heard it a million times, so it's easy to really feel this progression. So it's a fun thing that you can jam on with your friends. Now there's a diminished chord that comes up in this. It's an A diminished or E flat diminished. So I'm going to try to follow that somehow, you know, and you could go with that kind of arpeggio shape. So somehow I'm going to get into that when it comes to the diminished chord in the progression. So that's something I have to think about before we start jamming. So you can't just go in there blind. You got to know what progressions are going to be coming at you. So I'm basically going to just play it by ear and see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that's the end. Thanks for watching this video. I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys in Japan, and I hope that you do really good with your practice and just do great and work hard and all that good stuff. これでもう僕よりも上手くなるよ。Guitar kids 頑張って。And we're going to take this one away with a progression that's very similar to the song Reckoning Day off the Megadeth album Euthanasia. Let's do it. Let's take it away. 2, 3, 4.